The chamber will talk to us a little bit about the game rules, and Tony will, as in the past, will be involved in asking the candidates various questions, and he'll sort of give you an idea of the sequence of events that will occur. So at this time, Tony, take it away, son.
Thank you, Cliff.
By the way, take one of this thing. Tony lost the hand mic, so that's why I'm doing this.
Thank you, Cliff. Again, I appreciate everybody coming out. We have gone over the rules before, but again, we will go over them right now. Each candidate will be allowed to make a 2-minute opening statement. Then we will start with questions. Each candidate will then have 60 seconds to answer those questions. And at the end, they will be allowed to make a 2-minute closing remark. We are going to start in alphabetical order and move down the alphabet with each question. So we will go ahead and begin. One thing that is different in this forum than the other ones is we will not have enough time to have audience questions. So we apologize for that, but we're trying to be mindful of everybody's time, and so we won't have any audience questions this time. To start the introductions and the opening remarks, Mr. Bernstein, please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Davin Bernstein, and I'm running for City Council Place 4. A little bit about myself. I moved to the area in 1994. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I went to school in New York. Fortunate to have an ROTC scholarship, and then I was in the Navy for 7 years. And at that point, I found a job in Dallas, and this place just struck me as home. And so I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could. And I've really enjoyed living here. I moved here as a single person, so I know what living in a family community is like when you don't have lots of family around you. I met my wife, Angela, sitting over there, and we got married here, and then moved away to go to business school. Education is very important to me, and go to the best school that you can. And really there I learned about a passion for good governance and good business. And good business is not just about making money, but it's also good business in nonprofits, and it's good business in government management. And so that is my time, and that's where I've focused my energies since getting my degree, working in technology transition with the Office of Naval Research as a civilian this time, working with small businesses to help them grow, working to energize large businesses. And the reason that I'm running for City Council right now is because, having gone through Leadership Coppell and learned about each of the individual departments, from water and sewer to police and rescue to parks and economic development, is there is so much that can be done in this city. And I'm really excited to bring some new ideas to help grow this city, diversify the tax base, bring more retail establishments that are on the fringes of the city. And so I ask for your support tonight. Thank you.
I would like to take this moment to remind the candidates, if your microphone is on, if you will please turn it off. Make sure that only one mic is on at a time, because we're getting a little bit of feedback. Mr. Duncan, you're next.
Thank you. My name is Aaron Duncan. I am the Coppell dad, the Coppell grad. My wife and I were high school sweethearts from Coppell High School. We graduated in 1997. Lived here for a couple of years during high school. Since then, we went to Austin for a couple of years and moved back to Coppell about almost 5 years ago. And I've always had an interest in Coppell. In high school, I was an intern with Brad Reed in the Parks Department during the summers of 97, winter of 97, summer of 98. So I had that opportunity to see how the city operated. I've been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for about 3.5 years. I'm the board member for the Coppell Baseball Club. I coach the 3- and 4-year-olds. So I remind my wife that I do have patience, because I coach 4-year-old baseball. But we're committed to Coppell. We grew up here. We graduated high school here. I have a 4-year-old. She's starting kindergarten here. Next year, we have a 1-year-old. My parents live 5 houses down from us. My wife's parents live 7 houses down. We're fully invested in Coppell. So I want to make sure that Coppell is the same stable community that it was that when my wife and I grew up, that it's that we have a part in controlling that, making sure that it's my kids can experience the city that we are able to experience. But with that, one thing I want to commit to is one, it's my dedication for the city, but also tonight is the first night I might have seen or met a lot of y'all, but I'm always approachable, and not just before the election, but after the election. Don't be afraid to call me, email me, want to chat with me about anything. I want to have an open line of communication with all the residents of Coppell, so don't be afraid to call me and ask questions or what have you. So look forward to the opportunity.
Mr. Franklin?
Thank you, Tony. My name is Marvin Franklin, and I'm seeking the position of Place 6 on City Council. I already sit there, and I'm running unopposed, and I'm appreciative of that. I wanted to thank you all for inviting me to join this group tonight. It's not often that an unopposed candidate gets this opportunity, and so I really appreciate that. I've been married for 34 years, same woman, by the way, and I've lived in Coppell since 1999. I attend Covenant Church in Colleyville. Career-wise, I've been in the financial services business for many years, investing capital for institutions and retirement plans and endowments and families. I currently manage a financial planning practice for a leading wealth management firm. Served on many boards and commissions, both nationally and locally. Locally, Coppell Family, YMCA, Christian Community Action, which I'm still a member of that board. I've served citizens of Coppell for many years, 4 years on economic development prior to serving 6 years on council, also serving as mayor pro tem. Been council liaison to the Economic Development Committee, Senior Adult Services, and MetroCrest Social Services. When I was elected in 2006, the first thing that I wanted to understand was why there wasn't a relevant strategic plan in Coppell. I think at the time, we had Coppell 2000, I think. I presented my views to the city manager and the deputy city manager, and then to mayor and council. Today, we now have a citizen-constructed and relevant plan. It's called Coppell 2030. That will serve as a guide for almost everything we do from this point forward. I have a passion for economic development and a passion to accomplish some big goals in our city. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia?
Thank you, Tony. Good evening. I want to thank the Coppell Chamber of Commerce for giving the candidates this opportunity, and I want to thank those of you that are here that care about the political future of our city. If I've not had the pleasure to meet you, my name is Greg Garcia, my wife and Andrea. We've lived in Coppell for 20 years while raising our 4 children. My daughter Nikki, who's a graduate of Coppell High School, she's 26, married, has 2 children. My son Zach is 18, he'll be attending Texas A&M in the fall. I've got an active 17-year-old who is currently a junior at Coppell High School. And last but not least, I got a 6-year-old son, Jake, who is finishing up his first year at Town Center Elementary. We can talk about him later. I've been a volunteer at this community for 20 years, almost 20 years. In 1994, I became a member of the Coppell Chamber of Commerce, and I've been pretty active ever since. I currently serve as chairman of the Coppell Chamber's annual golf classic. That since 2002, we've raised over $100,000 for the chamber. In 1998, I was fortunate to be elected to City Council, and it was a privilege to serve for 2 full terms. I've been a member of the Coppell Parks and Recreation Board, where I'm currently serving as chairman, and 2 major projects that I've been involved in was with the expansion at Wagon Wheel Park, when the tennis courts, where we went from 8 courts to 12 courts, and most recently the completed $7 million expansion at the Coppell Aquatic Center. In May 2000, I was elected as president of the Coppell Youth Soccer Association, and I served the community in that aspect for 17 years. I'm not here to make any promises, I can assure you that, but I do have 3 main objectives. Number 1 is to maintain and preserve the quality of life. We as citizens have high standards, and we appreciate hard work, and we respect the lifestyle that we've earned. Number 2 is to make Coppell make sure they maintain a balanced budget, to work closely with the city staff to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. And last but not least, I want to focus on continued economic development. Thank you, and appreciate you being here.
Mr. Guduru?
Thank you, Tony. Hi, my name is Mahesh Guduru. I've been a Coppell resident for 12 years. I've been here since 1999 in Coppell. I've been in DFW area for 15 years. I'm running for Place 3, which is a special election. I've been married for 18 years. I have 2 sons. My older son, Ashraf, is a freshman at Coppell High. And my second son, Bhavik, is a 4th grader at Dental Creek Elementary. I have a master's degree in computer science from Middle Tennessee State University. And in addition to that, I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in management studies. After I graduated, I taught at Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee, and also at Tennessee Tech University in Cookeville, Tennessee. I work as a consultant advising major companies in DFW area and throughout the country. I act as an advisor for their software implementation. Right now, I am advising Boy Scouts of America in Irving, Texas. I was a library board member for a couple of years here in Coppell, and I also served on Vision 2030 Committee, and I'm also a member for Dental Creek Elementary PTO. Thank you.
Ms. Lusig?
Good evening, my name is Margaret Lusig, aka Gosia, because I was born in Poland and it's like saying Peggy. And if you see the name Małgorzata by it, it's the Polish equivalent of Margaret, the other Ireland lady. I'm just kidding. I've been a Coppell resident for 12 years. I moved here because of the school system, because that's what the buzz was around in Dallas. Coppell has a great school system, and I value education. My parents always valued education, especially in Poland. My dad was a farmer, and he moved out and became an economist. And you know, I wanted to go out and play, and he brought me back and said, "What time is this?" So I think education is very important for our community, and that's why I brought my daughter here also. She will be graduating from New Tech this June, and she has had a wonderful experience. She's had a lot of growth there. She used to be very shy, and she's just, you know, very delightful and can be in front of other people, and so I see the growth there. And I am a bilingual GT, gifted and talented teachers with Irving, and so I also value education. So my big deal is continuing the education here, to have it be a strong part of this community, because that's what attracted me here. And I'm concerned that there's going to be more people living here because of the Cypress Waters development. And I remember 8 years ago I served on the educational committee with Brianna Hinojosa, and we were just talking about that situation. So it's been 8 years that this has been prolonged, and I hope that the city will be able to accommodate all these new people that are going to be here in such a way that we have been able to accommodate the educational system amidst all the Robin Hood and all the other stressors that we have, economic stressors that we have right now. Sorry, I had a lot more to say, but I have to stop.
Thank you, Ms. Lusig. Mr. Mahalik, you have a 2-minute introduction.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Well, instead of going into a long, big spiel about who I am or what I am, I'm just going to go right to my 19-year-old son, who's a freshman at the University of Arkansas. And as I pulled into town about 6 o'clock this evening, he called and said he was just in an accident. So I'm a little wired. And if my answers and my responses today make less sense than usual, I got an excuse tonight. For the last 45 minutes, I've been on the phone with tow trucks, police officers, insurance agencies, and everything else. But the good news is, his mom and his brother's on the way to pick him up. He's safe, he's okay, and so are the people around him. So with that being said, I'm here. Is that good enough, Tony?
That'll work.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mays?
That's a hard act to follow. Good evening, my name is Wes Mays, and I'm running for Coppell City Council Place 3. We've been Coppell residents for 11 years. My wife Linda and I have been married for 27 years. We have 2 children, both products of the Coppell Independent School District, Austin Elementary, CMS East, and also Coppell High School. My son Chris is a senior at Texas A&M, and my daughter is a senior at Coppell High School. We're members of the First United Methodist Church, and I'm active in several ministries there, including the Boy Scouts, the music program, and the Fix-It ministry. My wife Linda is quite active in the women's reading program. I participated in the 2011 Citizens Summit, actually serving as spokesman for our work group. I participated in multiple budget reviews with the city, and I've also been a homeowner board member serving as president since 2006. As such, I represented the interest of our neighborhood before the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council on several occasions. I recognize that balancing the many competing requirements is not a simple task. Meeting the needs and desires of the citizens is the responsibility of your elected officials. I'm a professional engineer by training and an executive manager. I deal with budgets, schedules, department management, and shifting priorities on a daily basis. I will bring an organized methodology to listening to the desires of our city, creating a plan that meets those desires, and then acting on those plans. As a member of the Coppell City Council, I will represent the citizens to the best of my ability and be willing to listen at any time. My family and I have committed our futures to Coppell, and I want the opportunity to help guide that future. Thank you very much for your presence here tonight, for your support, and for your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Roden.
Well, good evening. First, I'd like to thank each of you for being here this evening and thank the Chamber for this opportunity. My name is Gary Roden. I'm a candidate for Coppell City Council Place 4. My wife and I have been married 28 years. We've lived here in Coppell since 1995. We've got 3 great children, all of whom are products of the Coppell School District. We are active members at St. Anne Catholic Church. I'm a small businessman. Our business does construction, we do architecture, we do mechanical, electrical, structural engineering. I know what it's like to make a payroll every 2 weeks. I know what it's like to manage to a budget. I'm a committed volunteer. In fact, my wife often says I'm a volunteer that needs to be committed. That's what I do. Since 1998, I've been involved here at the city on the Economic Development Committee, attracting new businesses to the city and evaluating proposals from developers about what should be a part of our city. In 2004, I was a founding member of the Coppell Economic Development Foundation and served until 2010. About 3 years ago, I was asked to co-chair a group of over 100 citizens that put together a vision for the city called Coppell 2030. And I really learned a lot about what was important to our citizens as I listened to them cuss and discuss and talk about their views. And then after that, I was on the steering committee for the Coppell Comprehensive Land Use Plan. I'm running for City Council because I believe in this 2030 plan. I truly believe that if it's properly implemented, the Coppell 20 years from now can be every bit as good or even better than the Coppell we've had the last 20 years. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. This will start the question portion of our agenda tonight. Remember, you have 60 seconds to answer the questions, and because there are so many of you, I will cut you off at 60 seconds. First question will go to Mr. Duncan. From the Old Town development to the North Lake Cypress Waters addition, Coppell is seeing many changes. What is the biggest change you would like to see in Coppell during your term you are running to serve in?
That's a great question. I think the biggest change that I'd love to see is one from a diversity of demographics. I think the Old Town project to really be a huge success. One from when I lived here at Coppell was the opportunity of people would live, and once their kids would graduate, they would move on from Coppell. But I think projects like Old Coppell will create an environment where people can live and stay here for a while, grow roots and stay established in the city. Well, that's going to offer different product offerings, different life stages can be accommodated with projects like Old Coppell. But I want to see Coppell where people live and stay, and there isn't a migration after kids graduate from Coppell. But I want to have a strong, established community that people grow roots here and stay and really become established.
Thank you. Mr. Franklin?
Thank you, Tony. One of the things that I think will be important over the next couple of years, and one of the things I'd like to see accomplished, is a clear communication of what things in Coppell 2030 are going to be set in place and what the priorities are. That way our citizens will know exactly what we're doing, as opposed to going about it haphazardly and having citizens sort of find out later. So the citizens already know what the plan is. It's up to us to now communicate what the priorities are. And I think if we do that, that'll be a major accomplishment, because that doesn't often happen.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia?
Well, to reiterate what Mr. Marvin Franklin said, communication is huge. Our community's become pretty diverse over the last few years, and here's an opportunity to embrace the talent that's coming to the community. Another opportunity is, if you look at what's going to happen in Cypress Waters, here's an opportunity for the city to become a good neighbor. I know we have limited control, but you know, the families and the children that are going to be there are going to grow up, so we need to make sure that we continue to maintain an opportunity for them to get involved. And as far as the Old Town, that's been a part of a conversation for a while, and I'm excited that it's here. And I think it's going to give everybody, it's going to establish more of the hometown feeling, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And I think if the entire community can embrace that, I think everybody benefits from that.
Thank you. Mr. Guduru?
Thank you, Tony. On Cypress Water, it's hard to believe, but there will be 10,000 houses coming up there. That's like 25% of the increase in our population in Coppell. That will bring us a lot of challenges in terms of infrastructure. So Coppell needs to be ready for that. They'll be using our facilities, mostly YMCA, aquatic center, and schools. So that's something we need to get towards, and we need to be at the table to discuss those things with the development and also the city of Dallas. So that will be a huge change coming in next couple of years, and we need to be ready for that. Coming back to the Old Town, our community is aging, but we need to retain our seniors in this community. We don't want seniors to leave, or young parents, once the kids graduate, we don't want them to leave town. So to keep them here, Old Town development should be an anchor for Coppell. So people who want to stay in Coppell, they have an option of living in a condominium there in Old Town and shop and eat there. So there are two different things here. Cypress Water will bring us a young crowd. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lusick?
Basically, what I've seen here is that it is a safe community, but when you go out, there's really no place to interact. Like, we would have to go outside to go to Grapevine Mall, or go like to the Angelica, where people can walk around. I would like to envision Billingsley, if they're going to bring all these people too, that they're really able to have a portion of their land devoted to some sort of a public community area where people can get to know each other. I mean, I have some neighbors that I don't see for months, and maybe they like their privacy, but it is something that I don't like to be in a community where I don't know if the person next to me is dead or alive. And if that person likes that privacy, that's great, but I would like to see more of a community. And we don't have an area except for our religious denominations where we have with our own unique groups. We have to come together, whether, you know, whatever denominations we are, to come as a community in an area that has a plaza or restaurants or retail area, something that we can call our, you know, our own, instead of just going out to the other communities around us.
Thank you. Mr. Mahalik?
Everyone here has one thing in common. We all have pride in our community. Everyone up here on the dais, everyone in the room, we're all proud of our community. We want to keep our community the way it is. Change is inevitable. We're going to have Old Town, we're going to have Cypress Waters. It's how we handle those things, how we act as a community, how we fix the older parts of the community, how we maintain our community feel. I take great pride when I tell people, you know, where do you live, Coppell? And they're like, oh, Coppell. You know, we still get that kind of effect. That's the kind of effect that I want to maintain. I want to support and do whatever it takes to get us to stay at that level. I received some very sage advice 3 years ago when I started, and that advice was, no matter how long you sit on council, leave it better than you found it when you're done. That's my goal.
Thank you. Mr. Mays?
Thank you. One of the things that we're going to look forward to is, as we roll into the 2030 timeframe, and that's only 18 years away now, is that we're going to see change occur throughout the city, from North Lake to Old Town to the roads to our aging infrastructure. One of the things that's been very clear to me as I've toured through the city over the last month is that there are certain things that our citizens don't want to change. We like our services, we like our environment, we like our parks, we like our community. As we move forward, we're going to be careful that the other thing that was very clear is that we don't want to see an increase in our tax rate here. So the one thing that we're going to have to look forward to is a development plan that's included in the 2030 plan that will allow us to continue to grow as a community to provide those services as we all begin to age. It's going to be a difficult change in some areas, changes that we've already started to see, and I think the city is well posed to adapt and to accept those changes as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roden.
Well, I think the most fundamental change I've seen in the city in the 17 years that we've lived here is it used to be this was a city that people came to for the schools, and as soon as their kids graduated, they left. One of the things we heard over and over in Coppell 2030 is people see this as their hometown and they want to stay here for a lifetime. And I think we've got to make sure that we have opportunities for empty nesters to move out of their big two-story houses and have quality developments to live in. And I also hear that young people, after they get out of college, they want to move home to Coppell, but we really don't have the housing stock to accommodate them. I think Old Town is just the first of a number of opportunities for that type of development. I know there's new greenfield development being planned, and we've also seen plans for a redevelopment of an area that's underutilized within the city that would allow for better use of our retail mixed with quality smaller homes for empty nesters and young couples. I think that's the change that we've got to expect in the city, and the city council's got to be prepared to have the vision to accept that change and see it as an improvement.
Thank you. Mr. Bernstein?
There are several things that I would like to accomplish in the next 3 years on City Council. The first thing is a community consensus and transparency. So 3 years into Coppell 2030, I don't know how many people in this audience know what it is, but the people that I've talked to as I've knocked on doors are very interested in learning about what it is. If you go to the website, you will find a link to a 100-page document that is very difficult to easily access and read. So those sorts of things have got, we have got to incorporate the community into the decisions that are made so that the basic concepts are understood. Secondly, I'd like to adjust zoning so that we take advantage of our natural physical location along major thoroughfares, not do silly things like have housing up against, on prime retail property that fronts along 121, which is one of the issues that's coming up before planning and zoning real soon.
I'm sorry, that's time.
Okay.
The next question, Mr. Franklin, you'll start. In March 2011, the Coppell 2030 Comprehensive Master Plan was adopted by City of Coppell. What one item within this framework do you see as being the most important key to Coppell's continued growth and success?
Several things. There's not any one component because they're all important. The key will be marshaling the resources to get things done. It will take public-private partnerships in terms of capital. It will take more than just sort of the coalitions of the willing that we've seen that come to board and commissions every year. We need to expand the resources with our citizens beyond that. And so there'll be a lot of resource management and co-investing and things like that to accomplish all of those things. So all of those things are important. But I think we've got to attack that with more resource than we have today.
I think the one thing that stands out is continued development. I mean, you've got a lot of opportunities here, and what may work on one side of the community may not work on the other side. And I think that from an implementation standpoint, if we lose focus, then I think it's going to hurt the community because then you start losing momentum. And I think it's important, like Marvin was saying, is as we have the resources and they become available and we can continue the project going, we can keep the momentum going. Next thing you know 2030 is here and you're going to look back saying, what did we do and what didn't get done? I think it's a great opportunity. I think our city services is important. I think Clay and his staff do an outstanding job of what they do and working and listening to the community. So I think from a standpoint, again, from a development standpoint, I think that's going to be kind of a main focus.
Mr. Guduru?
Yeah, the one thing which stands out in that plan is the Community for Life theme, where our population is aging in Coppell, and we don't want senior citizens to leave the city. So that's the theme behind Vision 2030, where we want to retain citizens of all ages here. To make that happen, number one, we need to get good medical facilities in city now. For any major medical thing, we need to get out of Coppell. We need to go to either Irving or Grey Point. So we should be in the business of attracting a new medical facility in town. It's not only for aging population, but also for the young population. And one more thing is the business development in Coppell. We need new businesses into Coppell, quality new businesses, where we can shift the tax burden to the businesses from residential owners, and also we can bring in more sales tax revenue. We are in a great location here in Coppell, but somehow we are not able to attract good businesses into Coppell, where Las Colinas has all the office space, but we end up with warehousing, and it's only 1 mile away from our Coppell border. So that's something we need to do.
Sorry, that's time. Okay. Ms. Lusick?
Well, first of all, I'd like to think that the committee has adopted a plan. As you know, all the adage says failure to plan is a plan to fail. So at least we have a plan, we have a goal, we have a skeleton, and over time it will be decided with, I believe there's a survey that we're going to be sending out to the residents, and the residents will be deciding what they like, what they don't like, what they want to see. And we'll get that information, and we'll be able to better serve the community from that survey. I also, when I was serving 8 years ago on that committee, we were talking about the DART station and whether to have a stop here or not. So that is something that's going to have to be decided, because of course when you have a DART station, people have all kinds of people from other parts of the community are coming here. But also if you don't have a station, elderly people, will not have an easier way to get around the community to other places also. So that's something that's going to be decided. Thank you.
Mr. Mahalik?
There's many nice and good things about the plan, but the one thing that stuck out the most to me as I looked through it, and it just really caught my attention, is that we're so used to seeing the city the way it is today, and I'm sure we all like the way it is today, but the foresight and the thought and the planning that went into this document that shows intersections, major intersections in our community, like the MacArthur Beltline, the Beltline, looking completely different than what they look today, because at some point it will be that the uses that are there today will not be the best and most profitable use. To see drawings of retail on the ground and lofts above, like some of the things you see in Grapevine and other areas, to see areas that are in our city being redeveloped to look like some of the other things that we see successful in other communities, kind of feeds into what I said earlier. Keeps us relevant, keeps us the city that we are, and that kind of foresight's going to get us where we need to be. Thank you.
Mr. Mays?
The key to the question was the growth and success of the plan, and that comes down to economic development. We've grown use for the past 20 years to almost an unbridled growth in this city with the housing starts. That is coming to a close, so we're going to have to shift that development off to the commercial sector to continue that tax base increase. That will give rise to all of the other benefits that we've so grown accustomed to. The master land use plan is a good example of how that will feed into the 2030 plan, as well as the Economic Development Commission that has been very involved with the 2030 plan, as Gary was talking about. I see this as a great master plan for the city to grow to 2030, and it's poised for a great success. Thank you.
Mr. Rowe?
I keep hearing this plan is 2 years old and we haven't done anything with it. The fact is there's been a lot done. We spent about a year developing a new comprehensive master land use plan that addresses every acre of land here in town, and now our planning and zoning group is developing new zoning classifications. So this thing is up and running, and City Council has been very focused on it. It's hard to address just one issue, but overall the plan focuses on protecting our existing neighborhoods. They're the real heart of our city. They're the culture. They're what make us who we are. But at the same time, we need to develop the property that's not been developed, and then we need to look at all the underdeveloped property in town and look at what's the highest and best uses. The plan addresses promoting health and wellness among our citizens and making sure we've got the right facilities for that. And it also talks about greening the city in places where it's economically feasible to do so. So those are the major parts of the plan.
Mr. Bernstein?
So the plan, to pick one thing out of it, I think is unfair to do, and the reason why is because the vision is so broad that it covers everything from land use to health and recreation. And so really the one thing that has to come out in the next couple of years is a near-term plan to execute the long-term plan, all right? To just go off and say, hey, in 30 years, this is where we want to be, right? We're going to go down lots of different paths. What we have to do is develop a near-term approach. Are we going to have a commission whose job is to advise the council on how to do this and to solicit, citizen involvement to accomplish that? The council cannot manage the implementation of 2030 by itself. We need to get more citizen involvement, and we have to plan how we do that in order to succeed with the overall vision. Thank you.
Mr. Duncan?
The plan serves as a great guideline to help the city be forward thinking, but I think the things that come out of that are looking at some of our ordinances that have been developed through the years, such as the sign ordinance, which I was on the committee to help write that. So if it's a success, I was a part of it. If it fails, call Tony. But with that, the urban residential zoning district, and we're starting to create those frameworks that will help accommodate that transition. So I think that's the key that has to happen. But I think the other thing is, it's not to be redeveloped. It's not to be like a light switch where all of a sudden there's going to be a big mixed-use development on some of these intersections. But I think it's about, as a community, embracing that transition. And when a developer comes through with something that might be a little bit different or unique than what we've done in the past, working with them to do that right and help it be part of that process and not be afraid with a little bit of change that might happen in smaller pieces. So I think as a community, let's just embrace that transition and make sure we all do it right and we're a part of it.
It's funny you mentioned the sign ordinance. Over the past few years, the Coppell Chamber of Commerce has conducted an annual biz walk within the city limits of Coppell. One of the consistent concerns of business owners is our current sign ordinance. What are your thoughts on the sign ordinance, and how would you balance the concerns from the residents and the needs of the businesses? Mr. Garcia, you're first.
Well, I know it's been I'm not going to say an issue in the past, but it has come up a couple of times. And the beauty of it is we love what our community looks like. And that's why we lived here, because aesthetics is very important. However, at the same time, when we try to make this community attractive to businesses, we've got ordinances in place that is inviting to our developers. And we have to treat developers as investors of the community. What we don't realize a lot of the times, that when a developer or a business is seeking Coppell, the investment they make. And we have to clearly understand that when it comes to their business, the signs are important. They have to promote their business. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a recommendation that's going to be coming forward. I'd like to see some flexibility, but at the same time, there needs to be common ground that's going to please and it's going to be pleasing, and everybody benefits from it all the way around, not only the community and the citizens, but the businesses themselves. So again, I think there needs to be common ground, and we'll see what happens.
Mr. Guduru?
Okay, on the lighter note, sign ordinance is a very favorite subject for Coppell Chamber. They're always asking this question in every meet. But honestly, I don't see anything wrong with what we have today. We can always be flexible, but if a business comes in and they have a unique idea and their need suits, like they want a bigger sign or a smaller sign, I think it's workable. It's a common sense approach where it doesn't take over other residences. The citizens who are opposed to that. But just for a sign, I personally think it's not a big issue. I think even the business should be flexible on that issue. If they want to do business in Coppell and we have an ordinance which clearly lays out this is what we give you, and before they come into Coppell they know all the rules. So if there's something very minor, we can be flexible. If there's a major, then they have to follow the rule. Thank you.
Ms. Lusig?
Again, aesthetics is important because it gives a uniformity to a community. Like you have a school with uniforms, everybody's uniform, and you give a certain look to a community. So it depends how important that is. I think businesses have to change the color of their awnings and so forth if they want to have a business. Even Burger King looks different here, or I mean Wendy's. So it is part of our unique look, and as long as most of the majority of the people are okay with it and they voted for something like this, and if they wanted something like this, that's what the community wants. So we have to be, flexible with what the community wants, and that's the look that we have. And there are supposed to be smaller signs, and it's such a small community. There's maybe one Wendy's here anyway. So if you look for Wendy's, you can point it. It's right there in the middle by Sandy Lake, and that's it. And so it's really not like if we have 30 Wendy's to choose from, or 30 businesses. So really, a small sign, I think, is sufficient. Sorry.
Mr. Mahalik?
Ordinances are what they are. They're ordinances. Not everyone's going to like them. It's part of keeping the community the way it is. We don't want really large backlit McDonald's signs and look like a mini Houston, but we also have to keep and respect the needs of the business community. It's a balancing act. We have to weigh what's best for the community and also what's best for the business, and it comes down to one word: it's compromise. For those of you paying attention lately, we've compromised several times in the recent future with signage a little bigger, or a little wider, or a little more this or that to appease the business owner because of their certain situation. Compromise also leads to creativity. And the best example I could give is the Terry Holmes office complex going up on 121, where he's putting in a glass sign that's being lit with like LED lights to have more of a glow than anything else. It's something we've never had before. Curious to see how it works. It may lead to very attractive signs without violating our ordinances.
It's time. Thank you, sir. Mr. Mays?
I think everyone is looking forward to the new sign ordinance with great anticipation. One of the things that occurs in business, and international business especially, is the value of the logo or the trademark of that sign. As we try to attract those businesses from outside the area, that's going to also grow in importance. So the key is, as Mr. Mahalik just said, was the flexibility and compromise. There's always two arguments to a disagreement. And I think by achieving amount of flexibility with a compromise situation provided by city staff, that we can achieve a win-win for both the city and the business trying to come in. As long as we're open-minded and willing to adjust to new thoughts and new ideas, I think we'll be able to incorporate any new sign proposal coming in from businesses from outside.
Mr. Roden?
I think this is an issue of balance. Obviously, nobody wants billboards up and down Denton Tap, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're not restricting the businesses that we've invited into our city. I was here for the city council meeting that Bob Mahalik was talking about, and we had a beautiful monument sign presented, all glass with this really neat LED lighting strip from below, but technically it didn't meet our sign ordinance because it wasn't backlit. So I'm thrilled that we're going to have a new sign ordinance that takes into account all the new technologies. But I think more than anything, it's an issue of balance. We want to make sure we uphold the quality standards that make our community look the way it looks now. But at the same time, the last thing we want to do is restrict a business to the point that their business can't function and be profitable here in Coppell so that we have empty space.
Mr. Bernstein?
I'm sure you're wondering right now if there really can be 9 different views on signs. Actually, I will say that I agree with Mr. Mahalik and others who have said that there is a balance. I have a good example. I work for Metro PCS, and when I visit my mother, she lives in a city where the logo is so distorted because of the requirements that it's not recognizable. And from a business perspective, that makes no sense. And so there has to be a balance between consistency within the community, but also recognizing that these logos and the kinds of companies that we're trying to attract to the city have an expectation that their brand will be a part of the community. And so we have to strike a balance. My recommendation is a broad aesthetic about what we're trying to accomplish in order to give the freedom to have solutions that are innovative and yet fall within a consistent theme.
Mr. Duncan?
I think it's good to have a refresher every once in a while. Technology changes, the way people brand and market their company. You have companies now that don't even have names; they're just logos, and you want to embrace that. But like Bob said, an ordinance is an ordinance. And when companies come, you don't have to give away the farm, because when companies come, there's a lot of planning and zoning tools that Gary Sieb and his staff can use, whether it's variances or special use permits that can always adapt to very unique situations. So we don't have to design an ordinance that accommodates everything, but that gives some flexibility that the planning staff can use those tools to accommodate special requests. But I think it's good to get feedback from the chamber of what the businesses are seeing. Get feedback from the police department. They have concerns about some of the parts of the sign ordinance and the residents. I think it is that balance, but it's good to embrace and refresh the ordinances based on technology, and things change every 5 or 10 years, so embrace it.
Mr. Franklin.
Thanks, Tony. It's interesting. Definitely a lot of views on signage here. I think the sign ordinance that's going to be introduced later on this summer will need to be credible, but it will have to be somewhat evergreen. One of the things we can't do is change the sign ordinance every year. We could, but it's really not good business sense to do that. So we need to be balanced. We need to have a credible plan that has some flexibility in it, and more importantly, our actions as we interpret the needs of business and citizens needs to be reflected in that. I think one of the missions in signs, because businesses are the ones that use signs, is our mission ought to focus on having businesses be successful. And I think that there's a cost to business turnover. There's a cost to the business, and there's cost to citizens, because citizens wonder why retailers aren't working, and this retailer's not here, that retailer's not here. That's partially due to signage. And so we need to solve that problem through a nice balanced approach to signage.
Thank you. Mr. Guduru, you're going to answer this first question. What single issue or factor, whether under the purview of City Hall or not, is keeping Coppell from realizing its full potential? And as a community leader, what do you think could be done to resolve it?
Thank you, Tony. Number one issue for Coppell, which is holding us back, is attracting new businesses into our community. We have been lagging behind on that. If you look at surrounding communities like Gray Point, Irving, they have major fortune companies there or bigger malls. And to live in Coppell, you're paying a lot of taxes in terms of residential taxes. To alleviate that burden, we need to attract good businesses into our community. Then only we can survive in this community where tax burden doesn't go up every 3 years or 5 years. And at some point, it will become very hard to live in this community just for paying property tax. So number one issue is to go back, attract good businesses, and we are in a great location here in DFW. We're proximity to the airport, and we have accessibility to a lot of highways around here, and we have a good workforce in Coppell, highly educated community and high income community. So there's no reason why we should not be attracting great businesses into our community and alleviate the burden on the residential owners. Thank you.
Ms. Lusick?
I think we have to become more of a community because, like I said, I think there are variable income levels here. I'm a single parent and I definitely don't live in a mansion home, but I decided to have a home here because I can't afford a duplex. So there are kind of different types of people here too, and we all kind of have to find a way to be more of a community. That's why I think we need some more open communication. I appreciate everybody being here. I'd like to have all the seats filled. Coming back from a European country that was communist, we didn't get the opportunity to really vote. So I really appreciate being in a democracy where I can have choices, and those choices are made by the people and for the people. So I like to really have more faith in government, and I like to have people voting and communicating better, and we have to find a way to do that.
Mr. Mahalik?
The single biggest thing holding us back, I think, is the ability for us to wrap our hands around change. We have to understand that we're not the same community we were 10 years ago. We're at a later stage in our development. It's good to be humble. it's good to realize that maybe we're not the flavor of the day, and maybe we do need to work harder, and we do need to make some compromise, and we do need to do the things to keep us relevant, whether it be with business or redevelopment or whatever the case may be. We have to understand that change occurs, and we can't look at ourselves the same way we used to. We have to look at ourselves a little different. We have to go through the realization that we do need to do some things different. We do need to work with builders. We do need to work with developers. We do need to be a little bit more agreeable to some things that we weren't in the past, and that'll allow us to be successful going forward.
Mr. Mays?
The single biggest issue has already faced us, and that's the residential build-out that we've seen over the last several years. What that's going to force us to do is to move our attitudes toward another way of life, and that's going to be to encompass a more commercial revenue stream for the city. The city is quite honestly at a crossroads in its development. The 2030 plan is a good step forward. We're going to have to see more businesses come into the area. If we want to use this city for our lifetime, as our slogan says, and if we want to live, work, and play here, we're going to have to embrace that change and adapt it so that we can continue to enjoy the very excellent standard of living that we've come to enjoy here. Thank you.
Mr. Roden?
You know, at one time, residential property taxes represented over 90% of our tax base. Through a lot of hard work by a lot of people, we've gotten that number, if you take sales tax from commercial businesses into effect, down to about 50%. The reality is some of the cities around us, like Grapevine, that number is below 20%. I don't think we're ever going to be Grapevine. I don't think we want to be. We don't want Gaylord right here in the middle of the city because we're basically a residential bedroom community. But I do think it's critical that we be very careful how we develop the remaining developable land here in the city. We've got to be very thoughtful in how we do that and get the highest and best use out of it so that we can get that number of how much property taxes are being supported by the residents as low as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Bernstein?
A lot of good ideas have been brought up here in terms of business development and protecting the residential character of our community, even as we develop for a broader future and a future with a vision. The single factor that holds us back, I believe, are the people, right? So we are held back by things that we can't see. And so how do we unlock that? It really comes from diversity. It comes from community. Building that sense of community is really important. Our strength will come from airing viewpoints. And as I've talked to citizens on this during this campaign cycle, I've heard a lot of people that have tried to bring things forward and haven't. And I get the sense that they've been shut down. And that keeps us back as a community, and we've got to turn that around and become a more transparent and a more communicating city.
Mr. Duncan?
I think we have to embrace that we are a bedroom community. We don't have a Vista Ridge Mall, a Grapevine Mills, a Las Colinas. We can't just draw red circles at intersections and say that's going to be commercial, we'll just wait for it to happen. We have to embrace that there is a nucleus around us that's not going to change and play along with that. When Cypress Waters comes, it's going to create value. We have to capture that value and transfer it to our community. And I think that's working with developers and embracing the right choices of development, the right land uses. But just looking at trying to focus on bringing business. My in-laws used to own a restaurant in Coppell. Just having a restaurant on the main corner in Coppell, it's not going to be a success. We're a bedroom community. People don't drive from Louisville to restaurants in Coppell. You have to work with the chamber to help embrace the local businesses. Buy Coppell, shop Coppell, to help those businesses be supported. We can't just put red circles on the map and hope it's going to be a success. So I think we have to work as an effort with you all.
Mr. Franklin?
Thank you, Tony. A lot's been said. I would say I was writing this down, and I think we've got a strong location, we've got strong income levels, we've got a great quality of life, we've got a great 2030 plan, we've got a positive fund balance. Gee, what's not to like about that? I think we're in pretty good shape going forward. However, I think The next step for us is to create a better value proposition for Coppell. You know, there are a lot of people who want to live here, a lot of people who want to go to our schools and whatnot, but we can be even better. So some of this is imaging and branding. We have a lot of really good qualities about our community. You know, a lot of people don't know how to position it. We need to help people position the value proposition so that we have next level property values, we have next level sales for our retailers and businesses and rents and that sort of thing. If we could do that, then we can get there pretty easily. And we're going to be working on the value proposition for our community because the fundamentals are good.
Mr. Garcia.
I wish you could have asked me first because they stole all my answers. You know, to be honest with you, in the industry that I'm in, being a banker, somebody made the comment earlier that when they talk about Coppell, it's a great place and it's something to brag about. I don't really feel like we're being held back. When I tell people that I live in Coppell, they light up. We've been very, very fortunate. We're one of the fewest, I think there's only 3 communities in the Dallas County that our property values have not decreased. And I think we need to continue to do that. And I think the reason that our property values continue to stay where they are is because we do bring value. I think we've got a lot of great opportunities from an economic development standpoint, business opportunities. Mr. Roden touched on earlier that 15 years ago, you're right, the tax burden was heavily placed on the residents and it shifted. That's a sign of progress. But as we continue to build out residentially, we've got something to offer. We've got a lot of quality home builders, Toll Brothers, for example. They're getting ready to build a huge development. We're doing something right to attract them. And if you look at the south side of Coppell, we've got a great opportunity. Thank you.
Now it's going to be time for the closing remarks. We're going to be mindful of everybody's time, so we appreciate this. But we're going to start with Ms. Lusick. You have 2 minutes for closing remarks.
I'd like to, again, thank everybody for coming here and taking the time to listen to us, because that's important, so you have a better view of who you want to vote for. And I appreciate I really appreciate living in Coppell. It's really been a great experience. I know it's a safe neighborhood. I know I have a good education for my daughter. And I'd like to continue helping this community by serving on the council. I do have a political science degree, so that's a side dream of mine, to be involved in politics, and I'd like to have politics be a good name once again. Thank you.
Mr. Mahalik.
Thank you, Tony. I'm honored to serve the citizens of Coppell and serve this community. I'm humbled by the fact that I didn't draw an opponent, right or wrong. I'm taking that as a vote of confidence. I never imagined 3 years ago when I was elected to this position that my first 3 years would include being councilman, mayor pro tem, acting mayor, back to mayor pro tem, back to councilman. With that being said, I've learned more than I could ever imagine having learned in 3 years.